Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. This is part 3 of the Blue Fox library design. I have made some updates in the last day or two, and I thought I should share them with you guys. So right off the bat, the library is looking more professional. I improved the README quite a bit, added some installation information, running locally, usage, just this normal kind of stuff. And I'm really starting to get a feel for the type of design I'm going for this API. And yeah, it's turning out pretty good and it's actually been pretty fun. And I've learned quite a few things, especially about how to like set up a proper TypeScript library that can be published on npm because JavaScript modules are annoying. CMS and ES6 and all the different required and import. That was breaking some of my tests, which I'll show you guys and I fixed and stuff. But yeah, I added a contributing, also a license. I improved the scripts quite a bit, which I'll show you guys that in the editor. But yeah, just updated some information on here, added some examples. But yeah, I guess I'll show you guys the README for this. So yeah, updated this right here. It has like one usage example. I will add a lot more to these coming soon. But yeah, I added this little API coverage, and this is kind of like basically the BlueFox API and what I have implemented. So I think this is kind of cool. It's a little fun little chart, you know. Currently working on finishing the subscriber management list. So far, I have 4 out of 7 done. So I have to finish the list subscribers, the get one and update subscriber methods or functions, and then I'll be finished with that section, and I will move on to the triggered email section. So yeah, let's jump into some code though, and I'll talk about some of the problems that I faced. So one of the things I tried to do early on was test out my current code because I've had problems, or I've run into many cases in the past when I was just starting with programming where I would write a bunch of code and wait a really long time to test it out. And that would be problematic because there would be so much logic and I didn't actually know where things were breaking. So this time I wanted to take a moment to like every time I write a feature, write a test for it and see if it works. If it works, then I can write another feature and I can slowly increment like that. And it also helps with Git too, because then I can know like, okay, this version of the library was working before I broke things. So yeah, that's kind of what I did. So I started writing this test, and one of the problems I had was the imports. So having types is really important to me, and also because TypeScript is not runnable in most scenarios, I have to compile this library down to JavaScript. And so I needed to change my TypeScript configuration. So I updated the base JSON. It's very different than the original version from I think video 1. This is video 3. So yeah, it's very different, way more options. I had ChatGPT help me with this because I'm not super familiar, but I want this library to work in the browser and in Node.js and Dino and everything else. But yeah, there was just a problem with like bundling and modules, and I had to edit my Turbo config and have like, because in Turbo is actually really cool. I'm starting to like it a lot more. Originally, it was kind of annoying because of like the setup, but once you get everything set up, I can literally run like npm build and it'll build every single package in my repository. And this is actually really cool. And there's also another command that I have. Where is it? If I go in this folder, you can see in the scripts, I have this dev command, and this is a watch flag. So I can run npm dev and every single module in my project is on watch mode. And that's just really, really helpful because if I make a change, in the client module, my test will also rebuild. So the important thing for like the actual npm code is this dist binary. I mean, not binary, but it's basically the JavaScript version. It's basically the output. This is what gets saved in the npm, and this is the actual JavaScript code for the library. You can see that there's like no types because this is JavaScript, right? So in order to have type safety, you have to tell the TypeScript compiler to export all these types, and that's what the .d.ts files are. And this is what the IDE picks up. So when you go here and go to definition, you can see it jumps me right into that file in the BlueFox dist index.ts. So I'm inside of the client library types, which is how you get all the IntelliSense. For example, if we hover over this subscriber.add, you can see we get the documentation with an example. So So yeah, that stuff was just kind of interesting to set up. It took me like 2 hours to figure that out and a lot of changes. As you can see, this repo has almost like 40 commits, and I started this like 4 days ago. So quite a bit of work, but it's going along smoothly. And I guess I'll show you guys the test, a little demo of the test. So let me close this. Okay, so the first thing, I made these little helpers to grab some environment variables. These environment variables, let me make this a little bigger. These environment variables are basically just used just for testing. This .env library is used just for this test module. And this is a private module in this repository, so you can't install this yourself. But yeah, this is basically, type safe way for me to grab env variables. And I'm also checking if any of them are null. So passing this object, if any of these variables are undefined, it's just going to throw because the test will not run if something is undefined. So that's that. And we create a client right here. We give it the ID. I also set debug to false because there's a lot of debug output. And inside of here, these debug functions, by the way, are little helpers. This debug and error are little helpers that I wrote. They're basically functions that can literally print any type of JavaScript object, maps, sets, even promises. You can pass in a promise and it'll resolve it. So this is just a helpful function to see any type of data without having to worry about formatting the data into a readable string yourself. And you can also control how far into the recursion it goes. So if you have like nested objects and you want to, let's say you have like an object that has like 5 properties deep, right? It's like 5 different objects inside of each other. You can just increase this the depth limit and it will print all the properties of the object. And this is by default 5, just so that like there's no infinite loops or anything, just in case. But yeah, so I think the API is pretty clean. Honestly, you just do subscriber.add, and I'm trying my best to match up the API with the documentation. For example, like subscriber, you have the subscriber, and then I just, add is the subscribe basically because the name of the module is sort of the name of the API. So I didn't want to name it like subscriber.subscribe. So you have the add, but then you have pause, just like over here, pause, and then you have unsubscribe, activate. And these are all functions: add, remove, pause, activate. Add and remove are like, the subscribe and unsubscribe. But that should make sense because we're talking about like emails and users in this context. So hopefully that's clear to people that aren't that familiar or haven't watched the videos. But yeah, we pass in the required data. If we get back an OK result, which means there were no errors, then we can safely grab the response, and you can see the types. And this is pretty cool as well. You get back this OK result, HTTP response, and the actual data. And then inside that is how you grab the value and then the data. And again, this is all type right here. You can see you get back the header information, the status, the timestamp of the request. Just some, maybe helpful things. Like, for example, if you want to say send this data to a logger, you can do that, some kind of external logger, and you already have the timestamps and other information. But yeah, the main goal of this test was really to add my email address to the Blue Fox list, and then I'm going to pause my subscription. And then if it pauses successfully, it's going to unpause the subscription and catch any errors. And if that all works, we should be good. So I'm actually going to run this first test just to show you guys what it looks like. And yeah, we can see that we have the subscription list ID, we have the email address. I'm going to have to blur some things out because I don't want to leak my personal email, but basically these logs show all the steps that happen. Now, if I turned on debug mode, you would see way more. And then if we run the transactional test, you can see that it returns a object with an email, and this object has a status of 200, success, status. Yeah, so this log is a bit weird, but the important things are this information right here, the success and the status code. So this comes from Blue Fox, right? This right here, I think is just like the reason it's probably double is because my log is written a little weird. I was kind of going crazy earlier, but that's the current state of the API. I think it's in a good place and I'm going to continue to implement it. So yeah, I hope you guys do enjoy the video and subscribe for more. Peace.